of what we are doing here at Southern Piedmont AREC, what are the crops we are growing on our programs, and then I'm going to pass that to Dr. Reed to talk about tobacco agronomy program. We may have to switch the computers because Dr. Reed is in a different location, so be prepared for that. Southern Piedmont AREC is one of the 11 off-campus locations of Virginia Tech. And it was, I don't want to reiterate what was in the email that Matthew sent, but in brief, we were opened in 1974 to address the needs of 23 counties in the Southern Piedmont region. The tobacco, soybean, wheat, livestock, corn, and forage crops, and also vegetables are some of the crops that are grown in this region, or the primary crops that are grown in this region. A lot of the activities that we do is summarized in a video that we recently made that I'm just going to play this for a couple of minutes. We are serving 23 counties in the Piedmont region of Virginia, established in 1974. I'm Arash Rashed, Director of Virginia Tech Southern Piedmont AREC. It's been 50 years of service. We have been working with our producers, supporting our community, helping our community by doing applied research, by educating next generation professionals, educators, researchers, and practitioners by providing science-based information to better practices to maximize productivity in our community. Our center is not just focused on one crop, one area of research. Our center is focused on a variety of crops that are grown in the region. That includes soybean, includes wheat, barley, tobacco, and corn. We are the only center in Virginia that's supporting our tobacco producers, providing with latest information on best management practices.
So there's no one else that does exactly what we do in Virginia Cooperative Extension. The link between the research at our universities, at our agriculture research and extension centers.
Here you get the hands-on. You get to see where the research actually comes into play, how it affects the growers, how you can use that data to, take care of pests or improve the yield.
To have information that actually pertains to them, and also to have this available here where they can come and visit and see it happening, see how the research is done, better understand what that data means, and also just having that resource for extension agents, to have a specialist that's not 3 hours away that you can drop by and work with.
Not only the data that comes out of here, but the people, the students that come out.
As a part of our land grant mission, we are focused on educating next generation professionals, faculty, next generation researchers, educators, to maintain the sustainability of the service that we are providing.
I think the connections I make here will help me a lot throughout my years, especially when I graduate and come back and start working on the farm.
You come here and you get to know people, and they really care about the students, and it gives them a leg up, and I think that's what is really outstanding about this place.
All right, so it was a quick summary of what we are doing here at the Southern Piedmont AREC, and I just want to continue with some of the opportunities that we have for collaboration, and we are looking forward to establish more collaborations. I know that we are working with a lot of you guys in other ARECs and also on main campus, but there's a lot more that we can do. This map here outlines most of the property. We recently acquired tobacco agronomy building. We call it Cox Road building, and that's where Dr. Reed is located now. It's that would fall outside of the boundaries that I'm marking here. That's marked on this map, actually. Yeah, it doesn't show. Right now we have 16 acres of certified organic land. We have 15 acres of ponds, irrigation ponds, and also experimental ponds. And you can see it on the map, almost in the center of the map. There are 12 experimental ponds that are ready to be used, and they have been sitting here and they are not currently in use. 40 acres of silvopasture, 120 acres of grazing land, all fenced in. We also have 859 acres of woodland. I would say that's pretty much the primary crop that we harvest and we can sell. So we don't usually sell a lot of crops out of our research plots, which constitutes about 130 acres total. So we are talking about close to 1,200 acres of land, which would make, surface-wise, which would make us the biggest or the largest AREC of Virginia Tech. Hopefully I'm right on that statistics, because I know some of you guys think that your ARECs are larger. What about the opportunities that we have here? What is unique about the center is that we have pretty much all habitats that are pertinent to Virginia production systems. And I mentioned some of those examples. We have silvopastures, experimental ponds. These are very unique opportunities, offer very unique opportunities for research, and we are continuously looking for collaborators to utilize what we have available here. Fenced grazing land is another opportunity that we have, and we are having several workshops that are done on livestock, led by our forage agronomy program. And these are all opportunities that we could do collaborative and integrated research and extension. Because of the unique opportunities that we have, our impact is not going to be just regional. It would be national and at the global levels too. It can create, and it is creating opportunities for unique signature programs that would attract students and talent to Virginia Tech, which is one of our missions. Opportunities for cross-disciplinary research between agricultural animal production systems is another opportunity. I talked about the woodland that we have available to us, and also the irrigation ponds and other opportunities. So those are all natural resources that could be utilized for conservation. And also when we are talking about transitions to agro-ecosystem. Again, if you have ideas, please approach us. All these habitats provide excellent opportunities for extension and community outreach. And I'll highlight some of the upcoming events that we have in some of my finalist slides. And of course, these are all great opportunities to prepare the next generation and make sure that we continue the services and the education that we are providing to the community and the students. So one of the important things that we need to do, we all are doing this, is program prioritization to address our stakeholders' needs. We do that with our leadership council. We meet twice a year. Our second meeting this year was yesterday. We get information from our producers, extension agents, and specialists, and also commodity boards. All these would help us to prioritize our research every year. But our initiative that we came up with a couple of years ago was having resilient, profitable, and sustainable production systems. And we aim to achieve that with two focus areas that are diversified cropping systems and integrated production systems. And again, the diversity of habitats that we have would enable us to actually achieve this and address these focus areas. We have several programs that are working together. We have collaborations internally and with external entities and institutions and departments. Agronomy, plant pathology, applied forage, agriculture economics, and entomology are the programs that are currently here, or our agricultural economics is about to be, well, it is already filled now, but it's starting in October 25th, and I'll provide more information on that. We have collaborations established with Center for Advanced Innovation in Agriculture. We know it as CAIA. We are either, all of our faculty are either members of CAIA, affiliates with CAIA, or we are doing research that are directly relevant. So that's, again, is highlighted in some of the work that we are doing. And I hope that Dr. Reed include that, already included that in his presentation. So one of the, if you look at the bottom right side of the slide, when we bring visitors to our center, the first question, one of the questions that we get is, what is that? You know, there are this radar system that is located in the center of our AREC, and it is actually Super Dawn radar network, one of the 30 that we have around the globe. It's a collaboration with engineering department. It has been here for many years, and the project is focused on looking at ionic movement in atmosphere and addressing other questions that are kind of outside of my expertise. So I don't want to really comment on what they do. But these are examples of collaborations that are really cross-disciplinary, and the habitat that we have here and the space that we have here make that happen. I talked about collaborations. As of this year, we have established collaborations with our neighboring states. All those points on the map are either students that we have here or projects that are ongoing, and or activities that are really we are engaged with across the board. I also highlighted in the graph in the figure on the right side, I'm highlighting some of the collaborations that we have in internal and national departments and universities and centers. But there are many more that I could not really include in this graph here. So we have 6 faculty. I'm the entomologist. Dr. Zhang is our plant pathologist. Dr. Reed, tobacco agronomy. Dr. Wilkinson, agronomic crop production, and Dr. Payne, agronomy, forage crops. We have Dr. Chakravarti. I'm sorry that the name is not showing. I think probably it's covered by the photo now. Yeah, he's going to start on October 25th. The original starting date was August 10th, but we had to push that back to make sure that he can make it here in time. Dr. Chakravarti is going to work with several ARECs in Virginia, and his appointment is addressing multiple crops and production systems, and we're looking forward to have him here in a couple of months. Ms. Rogers is our lab manager, and shortly I'm going to just talk about the labs and facilities that we have available to us. Tobacco agronomy, entomology, plant pathology, molecular lab, and also analytical and biochemistry lab are the units that we have within this AREC. Our analytical and biochemistry lab is very well equipped, I would say. We have HPLC, GCMS, a lot of other equipment that could be utilized to analyze plant material. We have a genetic lab that, again, is to my standards is very well equipped. We have qPCR and everything that we pretty much need to conduct some of the experiments that we have in our lab and also in plant pathology. The top right figure is a snapshot or a photo of entomology lab, and that's where we are actually keeping our colonies to infest plants out in the field or for our greenhouse studies. And we have plant pathology laboratory, and also a lot of greenhouses available to us. Our greenhouses, some of them are updated. The other ones, as Dr. Reed is going to talk about later, are primarily used for tobacco planting, and the process requires having those high tunnels, and more information is to be shared later on. And we also have a lot of grazing land available to us, applied forage crops, forage agronomy is working with livestock at times, and we have a lot of opportunities to for workshops and bring in animals for educational purposes and research purposes as well. So, as I mentioned that video, Southern Piedmont AREC is the only AREC that is providing Virginia producers with information on tobacco. So we have a very extensive tobacco research program, and a lot of our programs are addressing tobacco crop. And the impact of that is not just limited to Virginia, it's nationwide and global. And Dr. Reed will talk about that more. But I also want to highlight that tobacco is not the only crop that we have in this AREC, in Southern Piedmont AREC. And I just want everyone to know that we also work on corn, we have soybean, we are working on cover crops, on wheat. We even use some of the crops that are commonly planted in Tidewater, which is cotton, and we're working on that. But of course, that's just one of those minor studies that we are conducting here. We even have strawberries. And last year we tried vegetables too. So we are pretty diverse, and we are committed to that diverse production systems currently and in upcoming years. So again, if you're thinking about opportunities and doing research in other crops, please reach out to us, to our PIs, and we can make that happen. We also have the equipment that would help with that. The things that we are doing would not have been possible without support of our office, farm, and research staff. I just listed a few names here. I would like to thank all of them for the contributions that they have. We have about 16 staff currently, and 2 postdocs with plant pathology program. And we have a lot of graduate students. We had 2 graduate students graduated this year. And currently we have, or this year we had 6 graduate students. 2 of them graduated a couple of months ago, and we're having 2 new graduate students joining the plant pathology program this year as well. So I just wanted to thank you guys also for the contributions that you have to our success. Now, finally, thanking all our undergraduate interns. Some of them are here. They also help us to conduct our research, and also they helped us yesterday in our field day as well. So for those of you who don't know, yesterday we had our annual field day, and I'm going to use the next slide to pitch in for the upcoming events that we have on August 30th. We're going to have Optimizing Your Hay Feeding Program, led by Dr. Payne. She's not here. We have our Family and Farm Day, which is going to be the 2nd week of September. It's a Saturday, and September 14th. And the Forage and Livestock Field Day is going to be on September 19th. So please mark your calendars and join us if you can. The other thing that I want to remind you is this year is the 50th anniversary of Southern Piedmont AREC. We are having an event on November 1st. So again, if you could attend, that would be fantastic. We have speakers, or some of our retired directors, faculty are going to be here. We have some legislators joining, sharing words with us. And we are looking forward to have a very lively and interactive event. And at the end, I want to thank all of those who partner with us and support our research. I tried to capture most of them here. I'm sure that I'm missing a lot of those. And This is going to be my last slide. And now I want to stop sharing my screen and let Dr. Reed to share his screen. Stop sharing.
Okay, can you see that now?
Yes, but you,
So I'm assuming you can hear me then too. Okay. Well,
this is not in a presentation format.
okay. Okay. I mean,
There you go. Great.
now we're good. Okay. Thank you. And Dr. Rosette, thank you for the opportunity to be the first to present in this series of talks on our experiment stations across the state. I'm going to address the tobacco extension and agronomy program here at Southern Piedmont. And for those of you that are not familiar with tobacco, that this is a field of tobacco. And I'm going to start by just going over a little bit of background on tobacco, since I consider it somewhat of a unique crop. Yes, we still grow tobacco in Virginia. Last year, we rebounded from a historical low in production in 2022 and increased a little back in 23. We had over 12,000 acres reported planted last year. Our marketings were 27.9 million pounds, and that had a value of almost $66 million last year. Again, and what I work with primarily is flue-cured tobacco, and this is an example of flue-cured tobacco, and it's somewhat unique in that we harvest the tobacco leaf by leaf. So the row there on the left has been harvested 3 times, and then we see the machine coming through to harvest again on that row to the right, and once it passes through, it's going to look like that row on the left there. Flue-cured tobacco gets its name because of the curing process, and I'm not going to go into any detail on the curing process other than to say that it is a controlled process. We control the temperature, we control the humidity, and the removal rate of moisture from the leaf, and that gives us our desired chemistry and color to the leaf. And so we start out at about 90, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and we end up at 165 degrees Fahrenheit. And the process usually will take maybe as short as 6 days to perhaps 8 days, perhaps more. This slide is just showing a visual progression in the curing. And to the far left, that's the green leaves that go into the barn. The next photo there would be the yellowing stage of the leaf. 2 days after that, we would be drying the lamina of the leaf. And then maybe 2 days after that, and that last picture to the right, we're drying the stem. And that's where we're advancing from 135 to 165 degrees. Flue-cured tobacco is grown in the southern Piedmont region of the state, and that's why we're located where we are. Show that here the yellow counties are the tobacco, the flue-cured producing counties in Virginia. In 2004, we had a buyout of the federal tobacco program. And if you look at the production of tobacco then versus now, that red line is basically Route 360 that runs through the region. And before the buyout, 2/3 of the tobacco was west of Route 360. After the buyout, we've had consolidation of quota, or consolidation of production into fewer growers. We've got about 25% of the growers that we had before, and production has shifted east. So we have maybe 60% of our production in the eastern part now. Flue-cured tobacco is not the only tobacco types we grow. So we also have dark fire-cured tobacco, and that's on the left of this photo. Historically, had been grown in the Piedmont region of Virginia. And then burley tobacco is on the right. Obviously, these are 2 drastically different types of tobacco, same species, but just different types of tobacco. Burley tobacco has historically been grown in Southwest Virginia, Washington, Scott, Lee counties. But the production has fallen off quite a bit in recent years. There's not very much being grown in Southwest Virginia. And actually the bulk of this burley tobacco now is being grown in the Piedmont of Virginia. And most of it is grown by Amish growers that have moved here from Southern Maryland and Pennsylvania, and they're growing this burley tobacco. This is an exciting new crop for me, at least. This is one way to diversify, would be to grow a different type of tobacco, and this is Connecticut broadleaf wrapper tobacco that's used for cigar wrapper. It has a very high potential return per acre. On the upside, if everything goes very well, the return could be $12,000 to $14,000 per acre. But it's difficult to get that. The requirements are very demanding. You have to have blemish-free leaves, so we cannot have any insect feeding on the leaves. We can't have any leaf spot lesions on the leaves. And then once you grow that perfect leaf, we've got to be able to harvest it without breaking a vein and get that tobacco into the barn without breaking the leaves and damaging the leaves. So the upside is very high, but also the ceiling, the floor is low if we miss on the quality of the tobacco. So I'll go in and explain a little bit about my program, and extension work is near and dear to me. My father was an extension agent, retired from extension after 33 years. So I grew up in extension and very familiar with cooperative extension. And so it's my interest. So the objective of my program for tobacco is to provide growers with the research-based information necessary to make the decisions that they have to make for profitable production of high quality tobacco. So the goal is profitability of the grower. We can call it sustainability or whatever we want to call it, but the grower has to make a profit. We got to be able to return enough income back to the farm to advance and improve the farm, and hopefully create a situation where the next generation of farmer can join the operation. So some of the program activities we're involved with, one would be to respond to agent and grower troubleshooting requests for greenhouse problems, field problems, and curing issues. And we get those requests from growers as well as agents. Obviously, we work through the extension agents. We want to maintain a high level of competency for tobacco among our extension agents. So we're doing this through in-service programs, professional development, and research support. So any tobacco specific resources that our agents need, we've tried to provide that. And then on-farm tests, where we go to the local community, do trials near the farmers, and they can see what's going on under their specific growing conditions. So that's very successful. Also, we're providing grower educational training for the U.S. Tobacco GAP program. GAP is Good Agricultural Practices. So obviously, I'm involved with that in Virginia, annually work in Southern Maryland and the state of Pennsylvania as well. And I supply support to my colleagues in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina also, where they're growing flue-cured tobacco as well. And then we try to involve our graduate students and our summer interns in some of these extension activities. For some of them, it's the first exposure to tobacco production. So we want to introduce tobacco to them. And some of them, it's really their first significant exposure to agriculture on a large production scale. So I think this is very important. I think this slide is somewhat humorous. It's an example of a field day that I did, one field day in Pennsylvania, and the growers there, the Amish growers, they have to document that they know how to calibrate their sprayers, that they do calibrate their sprayers. They provide, you have to have documentation on this. And we actually did an exercise in calibrating a high clearance horse-drawn sprayer. So we're assuming that, we can control the speed of a horse all day long for making these spray applications. But it was very well received, and it creates a lot of discussion with the participants. Obviously, I'm more familiar with sprayers of this type rather than horse-drawn sprayers. Looking at some of the research topics, and one that Dr. Rashed mentioned is greenhouse transplant production, and tobacco now is a crop that is transplanted from greenhouse produced plants. For me, when I joined the faculty in the very early 1990s, this was very new, and it was a niche that I could work in and contribute to very early in my career. So greenhouse transplant production has been very near and dear to me from the very beginning, and we've continued that work. And some of the, the areas that we're working with is trying to maximize the usable transplants that a grower can produce in the greenhouse. I'm interested in seed performance, so there we're looking at seed vigor, seed coatings, other factors. Looking at soilless media and different performance characteristics for different components. And from the very beginning, we've looked at alternative production systems as well as components of the system itself. Moving on to other topics, as an agronomist, there are a lot of basic agronomy practices that we have to look at, and that would include fertilization, sucker control, harvest management, things like that, just basic production practices. Variety evaluation. Variety evaluation is probably the topic that our growers are most interested in. From December to February, that's a constant point of conversation with growers, talking about varieties and what seed they're going to be growing the next season. And you would think usually yield is the most important factor, but really when we look at our varieties, we got to consider other factors other than yield. So disease resistance is probably paramount among these factors, and then handling and curing and the quality of the tobacco itself. Also we've involved with curing and tobacco curing. So the first one is curing efficiency, just trying to increase how many pounds of tobacco we cure per gallon of propane, and trying to reduce the electrical consumption. We consume a lot of propane. We consume a lot of electricity in curing our flue-cured tobacco. And I think we've made a significant amount of progress in this area over the last 10 years. And we're also looking at alternative curing technology. What's out there new that we can bring to the curing space, and how can we cure more efficiently? And one of these is just using a wet bulb thermometer, and that allows us to measure how much humidity is in the barn, how much moisture is in the barn, and control that better. But that's nothing new. I found reference to the use of a wet bulb thermometer in tobacco curing barns back in 1891. So, some of this technology has been around for quite a while. We just, have more modern technology to apply to that concept. This is an example of some of our curing facilities for research purposes. These are some of our higher capacity barns where we load these barns with these boxes that they'll have 1,800 to 2,000 pounds, and we're looking at primarily curing efficiency in these barns. In the back of that photograph, you see some green barns there. Those are some smaller scale barns that we also have available. Just a shot of some of the instrumentation that we can have on these barns, measuring airflow, position of the damper, what percentage the damper is open, the combustion parameters on the barn, and just temperature and humidity, and looking at that. I had a graduate student, Taylor Brown, that looked at alternative fuels, renewable fuels, and we started looking at wood pellets, and this is a wood pellet fired barn. And then he went the next step to look at could a grower produce biomass on the farm, make the pellets out of that biomass, and then use those to fuel the barn. And his project dealt with using pearl millet, grow that on the farm, and then the grower would be able to make pellets and fuel the barn. And this is our latest addition to our curing research capacity. And these are very small scale barns. We don't use these for curing efficiency. These are more used for looking at curing parameters, changing the protocol that we're curing with. We load these with very small quantities of tobacco, 75 to 100 pounds in each of these. We can also use these to cure unique tobaccos, something that wouldn't fit into our larger research barns. We can cure much smaller quantities and cure it to the actual need for this amount of tobacco. And we can also use this to dry other commodities. And I've dried collards, kale, Swiss chard, some other greens. On a research basis, looking for alternatives to smokeless tobacco and using other products in these smokeless tobacco products. For a couple of years, we used them to cure to dry hemp, and thankfully those years are gone now. They're past us, but we did dry hemp in these for a couple of years. Tobacco curing efficiency, or excuse me, tobacco leaf chemistry is another topic. And there, what do we need to do to produce tobacco that has high reducing sugars? There are new products coming on the market that require specific leaf chemistry parameters, and one of those might be sugars in the leaf. How can we produce higher sugars in the leaf? The FDA is addressing nicotine in the tobacco. And so how can we produce low to ultra low nicotine tobacco? So we're working with that. Working with growers, I work with growers on a daily basis, and I feel what they're doing, understand, what they're having to deal with, and just the concept of how do we grow tobacco in the 21st century. And this morning I realized we're a quarter of the way into this century, but what is involved? How are things going to change? And one of those is climate change. And we know the climate is changing. We've got increased average temperature, and I think more importantly for crop production, at least for tobacco, we have more erratic rainfall. And over the past decade, we're experiencing a higher frequency of excessive rainfall events in Southern Virginia, and particularly for tobacco, if this occurs early in the season, that can impact the crop for the rest of the entire growing season. So we've got to address, the production resiliency. How can we make our production practices more resilient to address these changes in our climate, to address sustainability and profitability for a grower? So I think tobacco growers need better decision-making tools to produce the maximum yield possible of marketable tobacco, despite the growing conditions. We've got to reduce the number of bad years, the frequency of bad years, and even those bad years, we got to reduce how bad that year is. We got to produce as high a yield as possible, and then hopefully in the good years, the ceiling is much higher. So we got to address that. So I think this is going to require the development of better tools to measure crop conditions, better tools to measure the field conditions, and better strategies to address climate change and this increasingly variable weather conditions that they have, in particular rainfall. So one area that I've worked with, and this is just a title slide from a workshop I did last fall in Mexico, looking at Syntec soil probes, and it's kind of summarizing what we have done with our tobacco research with these probes. On the right, that white instrument you see, that is the Syntec soil probe. It measures soil moisture, volumetric ion content, and temperature at 10 centimeter intervals over the probe. We have 60 and 90 centimeter probes. We're recording data every 30 minutes. We can communicate this either by cell phone or Bluetooth, and then it's all uploaded to the web where we can analyze and visualize these data. So we can use this for a lot of purposes, and we're doing that. But this is just one example that I wanted to show you. You know, when we get a big rain, the question is how much water runs off, how much leaches, do we need to make a leaching adjustment in our fertilizer? So this is just showing what happened after one rain event. It was a tropical storm. We had 4.66 inches of rain. That occurred in 4 hours. So it was a very intense rain. And at the bottom there, you know, the 4.66, I can determine here from the software that 3.08 inches actually went into the soil profile, infiltrated. So that leaves us with 1.58 inches that ran off. The upper two graphs is dividing, you know, where is that moisture in the soil profile. The top graph is showing what stayed in what I'm calling the active root zone of the crop. And there we had 1.45 inches that stayed in the root zone. 1.33 went below the root zone, but still within the area of our probe. And then at the bottom, we had 0.4 inches that actually leached beyond 90 centimeters. So I think it's very interesting. And we've analyzed a lot of different rainfall events and looked at different times of the year and various factors. We can also look at the rooting activity of the crop and where is the crop actively rooting, where is it actively removing moisture. And this is one example of that. We've got 3 varieties there indicated in yellow. The bottom one there, K326, if you look at the bottom of that graph, there are some pink squares they're colored in. That's showing that crop was removing moisture on those days from 22 inches deep in the root zone. Move up to the graph above that, there are no pink ones there, and there are no pink ones up above. And even when we look at 18 inches, that particular variety, which we knew was a more robust rooted variety, it's removing even more moisture at 18 inches than the other 2 varieties. So this system is showing us that the crop is actively rooting deeper. We're also in the last 2 years used this system. It's an arable Mark III unit, and I put it in quotes because it's not my description, but crop intelligence monitoring. I don't know about intelligence, but I would say it's more crop condition or crop health monitoring. But these units are in the field. We get very precise, very localized measurement of environmental conditions, soil conditions, and plant condition. So we're getting detailed weather. I can integrate this with our Syntec soil probes and get soil data. And then we're also getting continuous measurements throughout the day of chlorophyll and NDVI. And we can get visual images of the crop each day also. In the software, they've got a button there that's a deep dive button for analysis of data. I don't hit that very often because that goes pretty deep into the data, but there is a lot of analysis that's possible with this system, and it produces a lot of data. We're currently running 4 of these units. Last year, we had one in an irrigation study, and we had some units in a seed biostimulant trial also looking at rooting activity. And then this year, we've got these in a transplant date study to look at the differences between planting dates and crop growth. But this is just one example of some of the data. This is looking at chlorophyll index, and obviously the greener the rectangle, the more chlorophyll, the higher the chlorophyll index for that particular week. And I've got two of them highlighted there: no irrigation versus irrigated rows. And we were getting greener tobacco, greener leaves, a greener crop with our irrigated treatment versus our non-irrigated treatment. And the nice thing about this system is, we're not having to fly a drone to get these data. It's in the field, measuring it on a day-to-day basis. Had a grower, last year, the end of the season, talked about, Labor Day weekend, we had a very hot weekend, and he could tell from how he was harvesting and the weight of the tobacco he was harvesting, he could tell that he lost 150 pounds in yield that weekend, over the weekend with those conditions. And I went back and looked on the arable system at our temperature and vapor pressure deficit. And, we had very high temperatures, high vapor pressure deficits then. The crop was very stressed, very late in the season. September is getting late in our season. So that made me think, how can we reduce plant stress to avoid this yield loss? Because, the grower has produced that yield, he's got that yield, but we've got to preserve it until we can harvest it and get it in the barn. How can we avoid this potential yield loss? So this year we've started some trials. They're actually going to start very shortly, perhaps even next week, where we'll be applying anti-transparent agents or sun-blocking products to the tobacco to try to reduce stress on the tobacco during these very high temperature periods that might occur. So that's, somewhat of a summary of my program. And I just want to finish with this slide, talking about potential opportunities for collaboration. And, some of my interest, again, would be with transplant production and working with folks that might be interested in bioamendments for the seed or the soilless media. We've got an active program looking at EPS tray alternatives. And one exciting opportunity that we may have is actually a biodegradable EPS tray that we'll be looking at this fall. So certainly interested in any collaboration in that area. Tobacco curing technology, alternative fuels. We've looked at the biomass fuels. A new company has come to Chesterfield County that's going to be making hydrogen fuel cells. Could we use these hydrogen fuel cells on a tobacco barn? That would be very interesting if that's an option. Agro photovoltaics would be an interest. And then just computerized curing. How can we automate our curing process and perhaps even remove some of the human interaction with the curing process? An area that I think is really ripe for collaboration is the area of robotics. Looking at tobacco transplanting, tobacco topping and sucker control application, green leaf handling of the harvested tobacco and filling the barns, any robotics that might help us to reduce the amount of labor associated with growing tobacco. There's a lot of interest among our growers and within the industry to look at this. And then finally, looking at UAS systems, unmanned aerial systems, and with crop imaging and pest detection. I think there's plenty of opportunities for collaboration with that, as well as spray drone usage. So with that, I thank you for your attention and open this up for discussion, any questions that you might have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. That was an outstanding presentation. Did we have any questions from anybody? You can just unmute and ask away.
David, I got a side question. How is tobacco sold now? Is it done still by auction or?
No, tobacco is sold under contract now. I would think at least 90% of the tobacco is sold under contract. There's still a limited amount of auction tobacco, but it's contract. And so that's changed how we sell tobacco. I mean, um, the buyers have all the control. There's a lot of requirements now that's placed on the growers. Um, and they have to address that. And now, the contractors are coming to the farm and auditing, what are the growers doing, and are they in fact doing what they say they're doing? And that addresses labor and environmental issues and all sorts of different issues.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and ask another question then. You talk about the sugars in the tobacco leaf. What is the purpose benefit of those sugars?
That's what makes flue-cured tobacco flue-cured tobacco. The curing process, we're converting the starches in the leaf to sugar over the first 48 hours. We're keeping that leaf alive, and we're converting those carbohydrates over to sugars. If you are around flue-cured tobacco, you know that there's sugar in the tobacco. You can smell, it's got a sweet smell, and that's what makes a cigarette is the sugar content of that flue-cured tobacco. Now the alternative, the burley tobacco, has no sugar in it whatsoever. The curing process is completely different, so there is no sugar, so there's no sweet nature to the tobacco at all. But that's what makes flue-cured tobacco what it is.
Any other questions?
Hey, David, I have one. You'd mentioned problems with insects and diseases. I was wondering what the major pests were in tobacco in Virginia and how that has changed over the last several years.
Our major diseases would be, soil-borne diseases such as Phytophthora nicotiana. That would be black shank. Yeah, it's a very major soil-borne disease that decays the roots and stalk. Then we have bacterial wilt. That's very similar to the bacterial wilt that we'd have in tomatoes and some other crops. Those are the two most important diseases. Insect-wise, we say we have 4 major insects: budworms, hornworms, flea beetles, and aphids. And we've got insecticides that largely take care of our insect problems. They're under control, and if anything, our growers do too much insect control or insect control. But the diseases are a real issue. I mean, I've had to deal with growers that their land, some of their fields are so severely infected with soil-borne diseases that they've actually had to quit growing tobacco. And so there's a constant effort to address soil-borne diseases with resistant varieties and chemicals. There's a question there. What happens to tobacco that we grow here at the research station and that we cure? We have traditionally not sold very much of our tobacco for various reasons, but one reason is that we're harvesting and curing all this tobacco, and we're finishing October. Then from October to the end of the year, our field staff is having to weigh and grade the tobacco. Well, by the time we have done our data collection, that's what we're interested in, the market season has passed. So that's somewhat problematic. We have sold some tobacco from time to time, but not a very significant amount.
All righty. I don't hear any other questions. A couple of announcements real quick before we jump off this Zoom. Thanks everybody again for coming. Our next event will be August 30th, and we'll feature Southwest AREC. Lee Wright, who's the superintendent there, is going to give a presentation. For those of you who don't know Southwest AREC, it is in Glade Springs, so way down in the far southwestern part of the state. We also have a few field day events coming up at various ARECs. I'm pretty sure everyone is aware August 1st is Virginia Ag Expo. That is at Level Green Farm in Champlain, Virginia. We also have some AREC field days that are coming up. August 16th is the Cotton Field Day at Tidewater AREC. And on August 19th, it's the 100th anniversary field day at Alston Smith AREC in Winchester. So most, in fact, I think all ARECs have a Facebook page, and most of us also have an Instagram page. You can find registration information there, and please share it with your stakeholders. That's all we had today. If there aren't any more questions, again, thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.